What couldn't you believe you had to explain to another adult? Before we start with the first story, please hit subscribe and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Story 1. That women do not all have their period at the beginning of the month all around the world at the same time. By pure coincidence, every woman my husband has ever seriously dated has cycled right around their birthday numeric every month. He genuinely thought that was just a thing, that women all had their periods on the days of the month that correlates with where their birth date fell during their actual birthday month. So say born on May 15th, her period week would be around the 15th of each month. He was 40 before he learned that was false, and I learned that my brilliant husband isn't all that brilliant in same areas of life. He also has no idea that furnace filters needed to be changed. Story 2. I was picking up Italian liras one time from a bank in Tennessee. The teller brought me the envelope. When I opened it to count the money, she looked at me with total surprise and asked, "Do other countries have different money?" A bank teller. This may be outing me as the stupid person, but when I, an Australian, was in pre-Euro Europe, I was befriended by an American who happened to spot a $10 odd note in my wallet and asked to see it. She thought it was cool that our money was blue. I was confused, then explained only the $10 was blue. Our notes were all different colors. This is when I discovered that all American notes are green. I thought that was just a T thing, like how all phone numbers start with 555. Blew my mind that Americans had to actually look for the number on their money to differentiate them. Story 3. How a shower curtain works. I kept finding the bathroom floor absolutely soaked after my roommate showered. I gently asked her to make sure the shower curtain was fully closed. Keeps happening. Finally, I figure out she's been drawing it closed with the bottom fully outside the tub. Ok. Sigh. So I drew her a diagram showing how if you put the bottom of the curtain inside the tub, then the water routes back into the tub rather than on the floor. She was like, "Oh, you and your science." Then next time she comes out wrapped in a towel, which way does the curtain go again? We were both graduate students in science PhD programs. Story 4. My husband had to explain to a coworker that she couldn't take a train from the US to Europe. She insisted she had to because she didn't like flying. Not nearly as ridiculous, but a lot of foreigners simply cannot understand just how big countries like the US, Canada, and Australia truly are. In college, I had to explain to a foreign exchange student that a quick overnight trip to Yellowstone was not going to happen considering we were in the Southeast. This is one of those times where eventually you just have to say, "Ok, just make sure you send us which trains you're on so we know, and have a nice trip." Story 5. I had to explain to my mom that my daughter was growing in my uterus and not my stomach, so the hot sauce on my burrito wasn't going to cause her skin burns. I also explained if she were growing in my stomach would certainly cause way worse burns than hot sauce. It was then that I understood why the school nurse had to explain to me in 5th grade why I kept bleeding through my pants every month at school and not my mom. There was a US senator who learned about cameras you could swallow to get images of the digestive system for medical analysis. He asked if the same technique could be used for women who might be pregnant to confirm the situation as part of a campaign to make abortions illegal. He was told this was not possible because the stomach does not connect to the vagina. Story 6. When I worked at a doctor's clinic, I had a lady on the phone wanting to book an appointment to have her flu shot. She specifically asked it to be a telephone appointment. I could not believe that I had to explain to her that we cannot inject her through the phone. I used to manage an ENT and audiology department, whilst COVID was all the rage. You would not believe how many very, very senior people I had to tell that no, our patient group of deaf people were not suitable for a telephone appointment. I know there are technical ways around this like Minicom, interpreters, etc. That is not what they were talking about. Story 7. When COVID first hit the US and there were no real treatments for it or vaccines or anything, I caught it and got lung clots and had to spend a week in the hospital. Numerous people on the floor I was on died. The guy in the bed next to me had it, and they had him under an oxygen tent. He fought with every single person that came in to check on him, refusing to believe that he had COVID. He thought literally everybody was lying to him about what was wrong with him. He wound up dying about the 4th day I was there. To this day, I hear people make comments that it doesn't exist or never did, or whatever dumb thing they have to say about it. I have to turn around and walk away from them or ignore them on whatever platform I'm on to avoid smacking them up beside the head. Story 8. The difference between Chinese and Japanese people. I was once a token white guy in a group of Japanese, Chinese and Korean students at a language school party in Ireland. I live in a popular tourist/language school destination in about 2009. The students themselves came around to try and play a game to work out which nationality each Asian person in the school had just from Facebook profile pics. I would say they only got it right about 40% of the time, with 30 to 40 instances, so going by that very loose, informal experiment, it's very hard to tell JP/KOR apart by face alone. In terms of other ways of guessing, clothing used to be more divergent, especially around 2007 to 2009 with the Japanese girls' fashion for frilly-fronted blouses. But the Korean kids around town have now caught up, as have the Chinese tourists. Sometimes a particular get-up will absolutely scream Japanese to me, and I often wonder if I'm right. Story 9. Used to work at a daycare. One day a little mouse entered the premises and caused an uproar until we caught and released it in the playground. After the whole ordeal, one of my colleagues, who was the dumbest person I've ever met, said, "Let's hope it didn't lay eggs anywhere." I was too stunned to speak and just stared at her, while my room leader/friend said, in the most done with the way, "Mice don't lay eggs," and walked off. Idiot. I love how so many people in these replies are trying to find a different interpretation of what she must have meant, or say that she must have been joking. Did he but no? Unfortunately, I have to tell you she was 100% of the opinion that mice lay eggs because she even doubled down about it later. Story 10. It was at work. I had to explain that if they didn't do their job, me or the next shift had to. I had a lengthy discussion with a coworker who suggested an efficiency, which was essentially passing her work to another employee. I explained over and over that the work still needs to be done by someone. She didn't back down until our boss agreed with me. My youngest sibling once did a student job at the postal office. The way it works in Belgium is, even though your contract says 7:15 hours, you just start at 7 and stop when all the mail is delivered. Some days you'd finish by 12, but others you'd have to work till 17 to finish it all. Now I know they explain that because I worked the job 4 years in a row. First day on the job, my sibling was only halfway done by 15 hours. Turned their bike around and just went back to the postal office. Left the undelivered bags out on the street and everything, thinking she could just finish it tomorrow. As if new mail wasn't coming in every day. Needless to say, they didn't last a week. Story 11. Being phantom mom and to lay a lot of the mind blows. This one actually has some cultural traction. Most people don't know this, but the female reproductive cycle was actually not taught at all to young girls/women when they were in schools like they are now. The earliest I was ever taught was in middle school, where girls were taken to a separate area and boys had another area, and female nurses and teachers basically explained to us that one day we would have a cycle and all the stuff with it. It's because back when most of them were kids, they never got it. Even in Western cultures, talking about this stuff was actually not proper, even among women to girls. So most of them went their entire lives believing various old wives' tales and urban legends and false truths because of it, like using a tampon would make you lose your V-card, sitting on the same spot as a man within X time would get you pregnant. Men could tell if you had your V-card or not. And because of that, most didn't know until they became pregnant and were told what was going on by their doctors, how babies actually formed, where they formed, or anything. They just accepted that you bleed a couple days a month, it's normal. Story 12. That driving north meant the whole trip was uphill. I laughed at her until I realized she meant it and ended up laughing at myself because there's no way I was going to explain it to her. Had to explain to a friend that no, all rivers do not flow south. Why did he think that? Because the world is a map hanging on a wall and, gravity pulls down, don't you know? Then I tried to explain that, actually, the North Pole and South Pole are arbitrary and merely a historical convention anyway. That the names could be swapped, and it wouldn't matter, but that was way above his brain cell bandwidth. It's because in English people often say up north and down south because that's how we orient the map. Americans also say out west and back east because the US was settled east to west, so going west meant going out into the wild lands, while going east was returning to civilization. At least that was how Americans saw it. It's also part of the reason why every American city's business district is called downtown. That came from the way Manhattan is laid out and why NYC's business district was in downtown Manhattan. There are also Midtown and Uptown. Story 13. A girl was staying with my family and had brought her dog. The dog got hurt at one point, freak accident that required surgery on her back leg and the cone of shame to be won. At one point, she started cutting off a bit of the cone. Me, careful, cut too much, and he'll be able to reach his stitches. Her. That's all right. He'll be able to keep them clean. I had to explain to her, very slowly, that the purpose of the cone was to keep him from licking the stitches and pulling them out. She honestly thought the cone was just an aesthetic thing. Story 14. I'm working retail. Had just rang up a customer for a pair of shoes. Total came to $97.19. He gave me a $100 bill. I gave him his change and receipt. His wife comes in later to return them. I give her the $97.19. She goes, "No. My husband gave you a $100 bill. I want the $100 back." I said he did, but his total was only $97.19, so I gave him change back. She persists. She wants her $100 back. I said, "Ma'am, your husband only paid $97.19, so that is what you get back when you return the item." This woman, "He gave you $100. I want the $100 back." This wasn't some sort of quick change scam. This woman was just dumb as a box of rocks. I told her, if you'd like to give me the $2.81 in change I gave him, I'd be happy to give you a $100 bill. She kept arguing with me for a minute, long enough for other people in line to speak up and tell her how stupid she was. Lmao eventually gave up and left with her $97.19. Story 15. I worked at a pet store and had a young college student come in and ask to see the mice. We had a few fancy mice, bigger ears, different colors, so I showed them to her. She ultimately decided on a cream-colored little buddy and also picked out a cute little plastic ball for the guy to run around in. As I was getting prepped to scoop the mouse into a take-home box, I asked her if she had had mice as pets before or if this was her first. I had mice as pets growing up, and I'm more used to seeing people pick out hamsters or gerbils when they wanted tiny pets, so I was always pretty jazzed when I saw a mouse go home to a nice person. This was when she let me know that she was getting the mouse as a gift for her friend. So I'm just going through the motions, getting the mouse boxed, and reply, "That's pretty cool. She must really like mice. Does she have many?" "Oh no, she doesn't have any. This is going to be a surprise." "Oh well, does she have a cage or empty aquarium from another pet?" "Nah, that's why I'm getting her this too." At which point she holds up the plastic runaround ball she picked out. I had to gently inform her that the mouse couldn't live in the ball, that it would need a cage in order to live a happy and healthy life. She really thought the ball would be totally fine as the home for little guy. After talking through the logistics and cost of getting a starter kit, which was tallying higher than she was hoping to spend, I ultimately talked her out of the mouse. I gently suggested a better fish, and she was very excited when she saw them all. I got her a small 1-gallon tank that came with a filter, food, some gravel, and a small light, all included for a much more affordable price, and she chose a fish that was her friend's favorite color. Alright folks, that's a wrap. If you like this, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your those in the comment below.